sermon is people are like onions. Weird, right? That's a good one. Hey, so people are like onions. Now, what does that mean exactly? Well, if you chop them in half, then, we cry. Hopefully you don't chop anybody in half, but no, what I mean by that is that we have many layers, just like onions do. There was this movie that I watched a while ago in one of my classes, because I take some classes. Yeah. And so they were talking about the many faces that people have, right? And how a lot of people put on a different face when they're around different types of people and different crowds. Well, it's the same thing if you say that we have many layers. There's obviously many layers that people have, many layers that people show, some that you'll never see, and then what it comes down to is your very core. So typically, like let's say when you go to a grocery store, what do you mostly see? You see the outside layer of the onion, right? And that goes the same thing with most people that you're going to meet in your life. When you're walking down the street, you're only going to see their outside layer, how they present themselves. And then there's the second layer. So for purposes of time, I'm going to go with 3 layers. And I understand that onions have way more than 3 layers, but for the purpose of time, they have 3 layers. All right, some gross onions, but whatever, deal with it. And so the first layer is the one that you see. The second layer is the one that people tell you. The one that how they show who they are, who they tell you that they actually are, and what you see basically from their actions, right? And then you have the third layer, which I call the layer of salvation. And that's your inner layer, that's your soul, that's your heart, that's who you truly are as a person. Now, what part of an onion actually makes people cry? And I actually looked it up. There's a bunch of enzymes and acids and different things that the onion has that as soon as you cut it, the cells get broken and it releases it and it makes you cry because it goes into your eyes. And so that's the same thing with people. Once you start breaking into their bottom layers, their inner layers, sometimes it could make you cry. Once you start learning about some people's lives and their past and everything, you start learning more about them and possibly you could cry. I don't know. Maybe you're moved by it. Maybe you're not. So I want to read to you guys scripture. Let's go ahead and turn to Revelations 20, chapter 20. Verse 11 through 15. Let me know when you guys are there. Chapter 20. Cool. All right, I'm just going to get started. Then I saw a great white throne, and him who was seated on it. From his presence, earth and sky fled away, and no place was found for them. And I saw the dead, great, small, standing before the throne. The books before the throne, and the books were opened. Then another book was opened, which is the book of life, and the dead were judged by what was written in the books according to what they had done. And the sea gave up the dead who were in it. Death and Hades gave up the dead who were in them, and they were judged, each one of them according to what they had done. Then death and Hades were thrown into the lake of fire. This is the second death, the lake of fire. And if anyone's name was not written in the book of life, he was thrown in the lake of fire. And, when it comes down to it, there's only 2 layers that really matter. Your works and, like I said, the third layer, the layer of salvation. One of the things that I have learned from Joel Stockstill that I will never forget is when he was here, was it last? Yes, it was last GTS. When he was talking about how there will be 2 lines. The line with people that think they're going to heaven and the line of people that are actually going to go to heaven. And it just blows my mind, right? And it's true. There's a lot of people that will live their whole life in their second layer, which, they'll be doing good things. They'll be showing everybody, hey, check this out. I'm a good person. But really their core is rotting, and their core is what's going to either get them saved or not. And my first point is going to be, make sure your inner layer is what your outer layer projects. There's so many people that I've met throughout my whole entire life that just waste their time and saying that they're Christian and trying to pretend like they're Christian and being, a half-hearted Christian. They'll do all these amazing things, and they say that they're doing them for God, but really they're doing them for themselves. And what are they doing? They're just wasting your time. I mean, I've heard it several times up here, Alex talking about, what's the point of being a half Christian? Might as well just not be Christian at all. I mean, you're sitting here, feeling the judgment of God, but still doing your own thing, but still trying to come to church. I mean, it just seems like a waste of time, in my opinion. You could be doing way more other things with your life. As for me, though, as many of you have noticed, I kind of just, I do a lot for God, and at the same time, when I talk to people, what I project is very real, sometimes too real. Sometimes I'm very blunt about what I say, and it's gotten me in trouble. But the thing is, I'm not going to try to pretend to be somebody that I'm not. And I'm not going to sugarcoat something for somebody so they could feel better about themselves. Because people need to know the truth, and that's just like how everybody thought that, actually, no, I probably shouldn't say that. Yeah, sorry. So, hold on. But yeah, so, make sure that what you're doing, that you're doing it for God. And then, and the thing is, no matter how good of a person you project yourself to be, that really does not matter, because God sees who you really are. It's like ask yourself this question, who are you when the door is closed? Are you the person that God wants to see? Because that's all that really matters, is that God sees who you are when the door is closed. I mean, when the door is open, I mean, you could, be have the most lavish lifestyle, the most beautiful person, but, and be, the person that helps out the most in the church, but does it really matter? In the end, does it really matter if you were doing it for yourself and you weren't doing it for God? Which goes back to what Joe Stockstill was saying. There's going to be people out there that are going to be like, yeah, I did this. I went on missionary trips. I helped out in the church. I preached. I did this. I did that. And I did it all for God. I casted out demons. And it all goes to Matthew. If you read chapter 7 in Matthew, it says, "Not everyone who says to me, 'Lord, Lord,' will enter the kingdom of heaven, but the one who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. On that day many will say to me, 'Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name, and cast out demons in your name, and do many mighty works in your name?' And then I will declare to them, 'I never knew you. Depart from me, you workers of lawlessness.'" And that's basically what my second point is doing it for God. And, we have to do the things that we do for God. I can't say a name, but I know a person who cracks jokes all the time about, how salvation really is. They're Catholic. So, what they've been taught is you just pray the same repetitive prayer, and then you pray a different prayer, and then you're good to go. Your slate's clean, right? And so he jokes with me every once in a while about it. I'm not hanging out with this person on purpose. It's kind of like I have to. It's part of my job, not the point. But, he'll always be like, he's like, I'll say something, and he'll be like, "Oh, Alberto, you're fine. Just 3 Our Fathers and 2 Hail Marys, and you're good to go. And he jokes about it. I have tried to talk to him about it, about how I'm like, dude, that's, you may think it's funny, but at the same time, it's like, you're not really saving yourself. You're actually condemning yourself in that sense. You can't just do whatever you want. Now, this guy, he makes a lot of money. And I mean, he makes a lot of money, the kind of money that a lot of people would do things that they shouldn't for. And where's that getting him? I mean, that's not getting him anywhere. It's not going to gain him salvation. He's going to make a ton of money. He already has, actually. And he's already made a ton of money. He's single. He's almost 50, and I could tell he's miserable. Most of his life, he's done everything for himself. That's all, and I can relate to that sometimes. Because there is certain things in my past that I did all for myself. Actually, my whole life, I was doing things for myself up until I was saved. Now I try to ask God, if this is your will, I pray that you help me with it. So, to recap, make sure that whatever it is that you do, make sure that your outer layer is projecting your inner layer. Make sure that everything that you do it for God. That people understand that what you're doing is because you love God, not because you want people to love you.